Hey, how are you guys doing? See, there's a couple people in here. Tonight I'm just kind of playing around, getting the settings right so I can do kind of lunch and learn tomorrow. Hopefully around noon Pacific. But if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask them in the chat. If I can, I'll answer them for you while I'm setting this up. I'm just kind of playing with YouTube's live streaming settings. I haven't tried that yet, so we're gonna give it a shot. Hopefully you guys can hear me. If you can't hear me, let me know in the chat, or if it's too loud or too quiet. So you can probably see we've got just a standard tutorial drawing open up here. It's a site plan with a bit of grading and a road graded through the property. I had a question the other day as to how to set up viewports if you have more than one area you want to show. And that's pretty easy. You're just going to want to use multiple viewports. I've got a video on the channel on it. But to do that, you can go to your viewport or your layout. This one's one of my templates, but most people will have a title block. And then you're just going to create a new rectangular viewport on the layout tab up here. And it's going to ask you if you want to fit it, if you want to use polygonal or an object to scale it. You can just click and choose the extents of yours. So if I've got multiple areas where I want to show something, I'll tend to make one large one where I kind of show the main area. So let's say this site that we're using. And then say we want to zoom in on one particular site. And this is the same if you're doing creating details or like part details and you want to show one specific area. You want multiple viewports set up. And that way you don't need to create a bunch of sheets if you don't need to. So we'll just set up 2 on the side here. I'm using the quick F keys to turn snap on and off, just to speed up my time a little bit here. Yeah, let's say we want to zoom in on these 2 sites over here. We can regen since all this text is annotative. It'll scale according to what the viewport is scaled at. Let's say this one over here we want to look at where the road kind of comes into the cul-de-sac or the development. So you can see we've got this area here zoomed in down here, and then over here we've got this one zoomed in. So that's how you do something with multiple viewports in a single sheet. You can check that. See what it's going to look like. You can see that kind of looks okay. And the other question I got on I think the most recent video, or maybe it was a couple videos ago, was about text and if you'd ever put text in the layout space or if you should be putting it in model space. And I guess that kind of depends on your industry a little bit. My general rule of thumb is if it is related to something in the drawing space, you're going to want to keep it in the model space. So things like lot layout, like labels, or if you zoom in here, alignment labels, or if you're doing mechanical design or industrial, say part numbers, dimensions, labels, all that stuff, that'll stay in model space, because that way if you decide to move the drawing around, all those labels that are associated with your part or your site move around with it. It would make sense if they were in layout space and then you decided, oh no, I need to shift the viewport slightly or zoom in or out. Then all the text is just going to sit there. I'll show you what I mean. In paper space, and it's not going to move around with it. So let's say this text here was done in paper space instead of in model space. Well, now when I move it around, this text isn't going to move with it, whereas all the text in model space is. So the only time I put text in layout space would be if it's not related to the drawing in a specific way. Like dimensions you're going to want in the model space, but part notes don't tend to move around with the parts or the sites. Legends don't need to move around, so you can put those into your paper space. Title block information, north arrows are debatable, because if you move or shift your north, you might want that in model space depending on what you're doing. Scale bars can go in paper space because they don't need to move around, and if you change your scale, you'll want to update your scale bar. So yeah, it's kind of my general rule of thumb. If it should move around with the drawing, put it in model space. You can always switch them back and forth. I assume most people know that trick, but this text here is in paper space. If you want to push it into model space back here, because you can see I can't select it, it's in paper space. In paper space, type change space or CH space. Select the text. Make sure the target viewport is active. If you want to put it into this one, you can do that. And then hit enter. Now you can see it's in paper space. Not in paper space, it's now in model space. If you double click in here, it'll move around now with your drawing. If you want to switch that back, change space again, hit enter, and there it's back in paper space. And it'll keep the same size and scale, which is kind of nice. Yeah, if you guys have any questions, just hit them up in the chat. Like I said before, I'm just kind of setting up my stream software and testing it out to see how my computer is going to handle it and my network connection. So far, it seems to be doing okay. I'll have to check the stream after once it's done. But yeah. I also just got Civil 3D 2017 installed, so I'm looking forward to working with it a bit. I had the trials installed earlier, but hadn't fully upgraded yet, and just recently did it when I got the new CAD PC. And if you haven't seen that, you should check it out. I think it's the second to last video I just put up, so it came up I think the start of the month. But yeah, it's all about the new CAD PC I got. Sponsored by XI Computer, and we're testing that out for some streams this week and weekend, and then I'm hoping to do some benchmarks with it and test it out with some big models and see how it does. And make sure you guys hit me up on Twitter. Let me know what questions you want answered in the stream tomorrow, as well as kind of any topics you guys would like covered. We can do some Civil 3D stuff. We can do some 3D part modeling or object modeling. We can model a mouse, whatever you want. I think I'm going to go with Civil 3D stuff tomorrow, but if the majority of people want something else, we can always switch it up. Yeah, it seems like everything's working. And yeah, if you guys see any issues, leave a comment or drop it in the chat. Otherwise, I'm going to end the stream here, and I'll see you guys hopefully tomorrow, noon Pacific, for a Lunch and Learn stream. Cheers. Thanks.